This week's Aelita Diaries is beyond bizarre. Why? Well, ghost, demonic possessions, and everything else in between. And yes, I said it. Ghost and demonic possession and ritual. Sure, it's weird. Is there anybody out there? Is probably one of the most highly forgotten episodes of this entire series. Because, much like some of these episodes this season, oddball, oddball, oddball. How oddball are we talking? Well, it starts with a ghost story of a person that was part of Caddick Academy, and more specifically, the ghost of the boiler room. Sissy gets the brilliant idea of trying to summon this ghost by occult ritual, down to the symbol on the floor, candles, and demonic summons. Yes, this is a kids show from 2001 doing an episode with a full-blown demonic ritual. You are not kidding yourselves. This is not a joke. Thankfully. And unfortunately for Sissy, Xana takes this as a slight and decides to joke with the girl and use one of his very creepy specters as the result of this ritual. That's right. This is yet another horror-themed episode. And the horror is legit. Hunting everybody down like a devilish ghost. And this ghost can't be easily taken care of. And you can't outrun it, and you can't outthink it. This thing is very much in the spirit of End of Take, and actually uses the factory's many floors to get the horror done, seeing that Jeremy and Auric, for the most part, are trapped with this thing. Yumi and Aelita have to go straight up to Sector 5, which they fail to hit the countdown, actually, which causes a very tense moment of them trying to double back, and enough time to save the day. And it's very, very nasty. For an episode that would be otherwise known as silly filler, this episode oddly over excels, not only in the creepiness factor, but in its true adherence to horror. Not necessarily demonic horror. We're not going full blown here. After all, this is a kids show. But in every other technique, this is a massive improvement over End of Take. And no need for alien references to be made here. And, oh, by the way, the icing on this very tense and somewhat scary topper is at the end. The ghost of the boiler room is actually real. with an end of episode stinger, oddly enough. Naturally, thanks to Sector 5 mission going foobar, the super scan cannot be repaired. That's why they were there in the first place, which constitutes a return trip. Something that we've only seen 3 times outside of the 4 times in the Great Dates thus far. So, at least it's a justified return to the norm. The episode is better than it has any right to be. That's why this episode, because it overly excels, gets a 4 out of 6. Although, this episode still doesn't earn its point of remembrance. This episode might shock you at how good it is on a rewatch, especially if you're an adherent to old school horror. But next week, we talk about one of the big ones. We are finally in the neighborhood of the final 4. That's right. We nearly reached the end of F2. And the episodes are going to get bigger and more important as we go forward. Starting with next week's episode, France Hopper, one of my personal favorite episodes of the entire season, let alone series, and it has one of my favorite lines of dialogue ever spoken. But we'll get to that fun time next week. Until then, I am Nirvana Sparkle. Find peace in your own Nirvana. And no summoning Diablo, please. Although I bet he just asked us for a bunch of microtransactions at this point. But I'll see you next week.